few months ago, the Gillows Flying Models Facebook group decided to hold a 2023 build-off, fly-off kit build, and I decided to participate in it. The group voted as to which kit they wanted to build, and the one that won was the Gillows kit number 902, which is a kit of the Cessna Bird Dog. This one was picked in particular because it's considered to be an introductory kit for free flight model builders and one that's considered to be fairly easy to fly. The Bird Dog was not the kit that I voted for, but I had an unopened copy of one in my inventory, so I went with it. The contest rules were very simple. The plane needed to be built, and a flight video of the plane flying for at least 20 seconds needed to be submitted by October 14th. I started my build by first lightly sanding the balsa sheet stock, which makes cutting the parts out a lot easier. For most of my balsa builds, I prefer to use Type-Bond as my primary building glue. I like the working and setup time of it. I find it is a fairly lightweight glue once dry, and I like the fact that it's easily sanded. I also use canopy glue, epoxy, and CA on other parts of the builds where appropriate. For smaller kits like this, I prefer to use magnets rather than pins to help hold and align the parts. In an effort to save some weight, I trimmed some of the thicker outer frame pieces of the stabilizer and rudder, and also added some lightning holes into the rudder itself. Another time I like to use magnets is during the covering process, either after applying dope or when shrinking the tissue. I use the magnets in an effort to help keep any warping from occurring during this process. Here are a couple of views of what the plane looked like after the primary building and covering phases were complete and before it went in for paint. For the paint color, I decided to go with U.S. Army Olive Drab, which in my opinion is a pretty yucky color, but it was prototypical to one version of this aircraft. One thing that the paint was very good in doing was highlighting all the covering and building flaws on the model. What you're looking at in these remaining views is the completed airplane after the paint was done, the decals were applied, the wheels were added, and the windows, cowling, and propeller were all added. I did not complete the build until a month after the contest was over, and I still have not flown the plane yet, but that's all okay. Sometime when there's some nice weather, I will see if the plane can meet the 20-second minimum flight criteria. I found this build to be both fun and frustrating. Fun in that I really like the small stick and tissue free flight airplanes, but frustrating in that building them is really hard for me, in that with my very shaky hands and bad eyes, it is very frustrating to try to build these airplanes. As a result, the amount of time it took me to build this would be considered enough to put me in an insane asylum if anybody really knew how many hours I had invested in the plane. Given those frustrations, I'm going to be turning my modeling efforts back into completing some of the larger control line models that I have currently on the workbench. I hope you enjoyed this brief view of my most recent modeling efforts.